Welcome back. This is might be the only playthrough I get for a while, of Captain C. We're doing the first mission out of the playbook, which is Constellation versus the Insurgent, which is French and American frigate with the Constellation. Now, I'm showing this because it's probably the only time I'll really show it, because your crew assignments don't change all that much until you start taking crew hits. So in the sequence of play, the first thing we're doing is assigning crew. So I'm going to grab a couple of these markers here. Now, the Insurgent, starting out, was already down 2 rigging points because it took some damage in a storm. And now we have to decide how to assign crew. Now, based on positioning of the ships, the Constellation is off the port hand side, and if we get to do some gunnery, I want to make sure I have crew assigned. So I'm going to assign crew. Now, there's 5 guns on this side. It's not 5 guns, but 5 gunnery points, if you will. And that it takes a crew. I have 15 crew, so 1 crew per gunnery point. So that's 5 crew. That makes for 10 crew. And I have 5 crew left over. Now, just to preemptively do things, I'm going to put some guys in the rigging damage control. I can put up to 2 there. So there's 2. So I have 12 people assigned. I'm also going to put a point into sailing for the French, because if we do any kind of strain maneuver, this will add 1 to your die roll. So we'll have crew there in case we do anything extraordinary maneuver-wise. I don't plan on changing the rigging. We're starting off at medium sails. Medium sails help give you maneuver points for executing actions during the turn. Fighting sail gives you less, but yeah. So I guess if you want to, I don't know, I'll just leave it at medium. It doesn't really matter at this point. I was trying to think. Extra damage to rigging if you're in medium sail, but I know medium sails you get more maneuver points. I have to remember that. Off the top of my head, I'm like, oh wait a minute, if I shoot into the rigging, I don't remember if I take more or less damage to rigging hits. I'll look that up later. But that's the French ship, so I'm going to move that off to the side. Now, the American ship, I'll just drag that guy over real quick. I mean, it's very similar. Oh, I gotta put them at full strength. Now, versus the French, the Americans had a crack crew, so we'll put that there. The French were average. I've got medium sails. Crew, the morale is handy. Same with the French. They got the highest morale right now. I've got the different shots I have loaded. I am going to change the loaded for the starboard. This is something you would decide, obviously hidden from your opponent, but I'm solo. I was using round shot earlier, played a game. Instead, we're going to load some chain shots, so standard aft or starboard aft. At this range, I really want to try and get some rigging. So we're not going to do double. Here's chain. So this, the French ship is off the starboard side of the American ship. So we're loading up chain shot. Don't tell anybody. It's secret. And I've got the same with the French. I have the forward chasers are loaded. Same with the stern chasers. And for crew, I get 15. Now I have more guns on this ship. So 6 gunnery points to starboard. And oops, I'll just put it here. 6 there, because this tells me, this point tracker tells me how many guns are available based on damage, and then this point tracker here says I'm going to have 6 men assigned, 6 men assigned, and I'm going to put some dudes here for sailing, so that's 13, and we'll put damage control because you never know. Now, if I had any leftover people, they would go over here onto the crew tracker set aside for melee combat. If we get close enough to grapple and melee, then possibly I would maybe unassign people from gunnery and put them over there to do crew actions. But for right now, everybody that's going to fight is there ready assigned for fighting. So again, that won't really change much unless something really calls for it. So I'm just going to set those 2 ships off to the side. Okay, so that's the first thing. We assign crew. Done. Determine initiative. Easy enough. It's a die roll. So I'm going to use purple for the American, white for the French, and starting out, we're just rolling to see who goes first. If it's a tie, I'll re-roll. So here the French go first. I actually have an initiative tracker over here off to the side. You can't see the board. We're going to try and focus some action over here on the ships in just a moment, but there I have an initiative for the French. Typically, there's only a few things where that really matters because a lot of times movement, I wouldn't call it simultaneously, but they just say like as a courtesy, non-initiative will fire first, but firing is simultaneous. So I'm kind of on a how important is initiative really, but we have it, so I'm doing it. All right, with that, next thing in the sequence is determine movement rates. Okay, so we're going to determine movement points. Now, that works great when the ships have, they're not facing the same direction. They're like relative to each other, different angles. But when you start the game for this particular scenario, both ships, I'm seeing if I can get it up high enough to put them both in view. Stretch arm, I need to be taller. There we go. So both ships are facing the same direction. So what that means is there's 0 movement points. So, you know, this game doesn't move on the idea of simulation to where I calculate based on the wind direction, wind state, sail state, sea state, how many movement points I have, and then compared to the type of ship I'm against, and I get like, you know, 6 movement points. This is that ship management aspect where now we're dealing with terms of in relative positioning to each other. So we relativeness are running parallel to one another, and so we get 0 movement points or maneuver points. Now what that means is over here on this impulse tracker that you can't see all the numbers very well unless I zoomed it in, we run on impulses. And once we know how many movement points we have, we're going to take these activation markers. And we know that we got 0. So I'm going to put an active there on the 12 impulse for the Americans and an activate marker for the French. Then it says that that's our movement rates. When they're moving in the same directions relative to each other, there's no maneuvering points because they're, so it's going to take a minute for them to decide on a maneuver. Now we do the activation cycle. So we select maneuvers. Neither one of us have done anything yet, so we're going to select maneuvers. I want to bring my ship relative closeness closer. So to do that, I would want to eventually turn in towards this ship, make a starboard turn. Now the wind is blowing against my ship in the E. Well, we have over here a maneuver chart, and then if I look in the E, that says it's beam reaching. And then I can do a back sail, I can do a wear, which is a rotate 1 point from D to F or from E to G. So what that means is I'm going to go D to F. So I'd like, here's a D, but then I would rotate that D to the F. That would make me do a starboard turn. But I don't do that yet. So what I do is I look over here with these blocks I have. I have an American block. Now this would be done secret, but you know, I'm just playing solo. So I'm going to do a wear maneuver. So I pick my American block with the corresponding maneuver. I would hide that from my opponent. Oh, you know what? We rolled initiative. I forgot to draw. The initiative holder gets... Oh, no, I'm not drawing that till the end of the turn. Never mind. We're good. So I picked a maneuver for the Americans. Now I had this chart and I found out that this wheel is missing some maneuver entries to help me decide what to do with the French player. So I'm picking as close as I can to the closest entry in the logbook for what it can do. So the AI ship is heading this way, relative positioning of me to them is that way, and the wind is blowing in from this direction. Now, in this book, the closest to a 311 is a 312. No, they got a 321. That's the closest entry. So I roll a die 6, and this is determining for the French player, because that's the AI. They roll a die of 2, so if I look at 321, the entry says you're going to make a turn to the northeast, and your maneuver will be to go straight ahead. Now, that does give the AI like some free moves, if you will, but in the long run, this actually works out pretty good. So the AI doesn't follow the same rules as the player, it's following a bot system, but it says it's going to move ahead. So what I do is I find a block that puts it in the G facing, and to move ahead, that's beating because he's getting into the wind. It's going to take here's the French block, 3 maneuvers before it can move forward 1 square. In other words, it's going to take a while before it can cross, because if you notice on this whole turn there's only 1 impulse where they get to earn a maneuver point, and he's going to need 3. So it's going to take a while before he can move into the wind that direction. Okay, so we have now, again, following our little what do we do. Now it says select the first marked impulse. Well, this is the fun part. We get to skip all these. Nothing's happening. Nothing's being reloaded. Nothing's being activated. And we get down here, and then here's our first activation. Since the French player's first, I'm going to take their activate marker, and I'm going to stick it over here. I have what I'll do maybe for the camera is just put it down here, so we're reminded that they got 1 activation. They actually have over on the maneuver chart a spot where you can put your active markers just to help keep clutter off of the table. But since we're so zoomed out, this might help remind people where ships are located. So we got their first active. Now, because they activated, one of the things that they can do is decide if they're going to shoot. Now, the American player, this is, again, all this is kind of simultaneous. So the American player, he's also active, and he's got 1. And so he has to decide what he wants to do. Now, remember, the French player has to accumulate 3 of these before they can move forward. The American player, I had a maneuver costing 1, and I now have my 1 point. So I'm going to finish my maneuver, because in the scheme of activations, there's you complete your maneuver, you load, and then you fire your guns. And there was one other point you do. I was trying to remember. At some point, that's the playbook. All of this is going to be stuck in my memory, but a lot of these are not on the player aid, so I got to kind of remember. So I activate, do the maneuver, load, fire, and then attempt to grapple. So I had to complete my maneuver, which was to where. So I'm going to do 1 that way. And now I pick a new maneuver. I'm trying to get closer to the French player, so I'm going to go ahead and pick that same. Since I'm in a B, to cross the corner, it's still 3. So I pick the American block with a 3. Now I got to accumulate 3 impulses before I can go across. Alright, then I've activated, I picked my maneuver after an activation. I took my activate marker off because he hasn't accumulated anything. Now we're going to fire. Fire, again, even though it's simultaneous, I'm going to go ahead and it says like the non-initiative player would go first. So I'm going to fire 10 guns. We have to determine distance. The distance is not counted in squares. It's counted in movement points. And if you are inside the 24 movement points, you can fire. So going across a side is 2 movement points. Diagonal counts as 3. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Now, in this case, you could have just counted the squares, but again, once you start getting diagonals from each other, you got to count the 3. So I could have just simply counted how many squares, because 24 divided by 2 is 12, and it's 12 squares. It doesn't always work that way. Now, I'm within range, so they started us, we could start shooting. I have 10 guns manned, so I'm going to have 10 dice. So, yep, if you were wondering, this is a semi-bucket of dice game. Now, I've got my 10 dice, and we get bonuses for hitting. One is if you had card play, so I'm putting in my 1 die to simulate, my 1 fate die to simulate possible card roll. And I believe we get to add 1 for the morale. So I'm going to look at the firing bonuses real quick. Yep, you get if your cruise ship, if the cruise morale is handy, which it is, I'm not firing double shot, but I am firing chain shot. So that's +2. You hit on 5s and 6s, so every roll of 3 is a hit. Now I'm going to roll this. Okay, so first of all, the fate die came up blank. So the French player, if he had a card, he didn't play it. A 4 is a hit because we're adding 2, and a 5 or 6 is a hit. So this is a hit. A 3 is a hit. 2 is a miss. 2 is a miss. 1 is a miss. 3 is a hit. 4 is a hit. Oh, that's a 6. Sorry. 5 is a hit. 3 is also a hit. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have a little tracker on the side initiative, so I'm just going to mark 7 on the initiative tracker. 7 hits. Now the defender gets to roll, and he gets half the distance. The movement points divide by 2. That's how many dice. So I'm getting 12 dice. I had to go find some dice 6, so I didn't have to keep re-rolling the same one. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. I had another die 6 somewhere. Here it is, 12. Then you do get +1 to your roll if you're over 12 movement points away. We're way past that. So this is going to be, if I'm lucky, I'll dodge most of that. But 7 hits, yeah, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to add my 1, so I might get to modify one of these. And 5s or 6s are a block. Alright, so 1, or this negative means there was no card spent to modify a die roll. So I'm only adding 1. So there negates a hit, that 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 negated a hit, that negated a hit. So I got some 3s, 2s over here, so they don't do anything. So basically, the farther away you are, the harder it is to hit the ship. So even though we got 7 hits, based on distance, I was able to avoid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 8 hits. So that really nice broadside they didn't hurt the ship. So what I then do is I'm going to take these markers that indicate what was loaded into those spots, which they were firing chain shot because we're trying to get a rigging kill before we get close. And based on when I fired, since we were on impulse 12, it does, because the cruise average takes 9 impulses to reload, and because we're doing a special shot, if it was just round shot, it would just be 9. But because it's chain, or if it was double, you add 2 more impulses. So they're going to be reloaded by impulse 11 of the next turn. Now they also generate smoke, so we're going to have 2 2-point smoke markers, and they're going to be on the ship. However, since this is simultaneous fire, My ship won't be affected by the smoke because all this was happening at once, kind of a thing. Alright, now my ship is firing. It's under those same restrictions. The range, I'm in range. It will give them a +1 to their defense, but I have 12 guns that I can fire. Yay me. So that's all my dice, or 12 gunnery factors, and it's the same thing. I've got +1 for my crew, they're handy, and then +1 for chain. So we're going to hit basically on 3 ups. So there's a hit, there's a hit. Oh, I forgot to roll this. Maybe I can modify one. Nope. So basically, if anybody had cards, nobody's had cards that they wanted to waste. That 1 and a 2 is a miss, so there's a hit. Oops, there's a hit, there's a hit, there's a hit. There's a hit, there's a hit. Hit. Make sure I get them all. Hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo! The Americans. That was a devastating volley. Well, now we have to roll the defense. And it's your range and movement points divided by 2 because it's a very long range shot. It is extremely long. And they get +1 to their roll because of the distance is over 12 movement points, and that means they're going to save on 4 ups. Okay, so I checked my fate die. They didn't play a card, so this works. This was a miss. This was a miss. This was a miss. Again, there's a save, a miss. We might have got a couple of hits in. We may have. The superior firepower may have got a few hits in. So the French were able to negate 2, 4, 7. So that means I actually scored 3 hits with the Americans. Wow. Well, before I do anything else, we're going to take those reloads. Now, because my unit is crack, they take 6 impulses to reload, add 2 for the special shot. So they're going to reload on an 8. So yes, they can reload and fire quicker. And they also generate 2 smoke. So this smoke is now in effect. So smoke markers are in effect. Lots of smoke from that going on. Now we have to check for damage. So to do damage, I take 3 dice. I take 2 that are the same color, 1 that's an off color, roll it. Oh, and I forgot to roll my potential card. Nope. Oh, this was not a good roll anyway. And I take the total and add it up. So that's only a 6. I have here this damage chart, which without zooming in to show you, because I rolled, I was trying to shoot high, I do get to modify that. Because I'm firing with the wind is blowing this way, I subtract 1. But because I'm firing high, I get to add 1 because I have a handy crew. So it's 6. Then I look at my 6 column, I run it across, 6, and I go out to 3 hits, and it says 3 hull hits. I know you can't read it, but 3 hull hits, 1 crew. Because I fired chain, this is why it's almost like ball shot is the best, but because I fired chain, it does not hurt the hull, but I did kill a crew. Now, that's the initial result of that combat. A couple other things I check now is, 1, I check to see how that affects the crew morale. So they're going to roll a die 6 for the crew. You're going to get their little die modifier because maybe they play a card. And they get to add 1 to the result because they are handy. Now, if a 1 or 2 is the result, then their morale goes down. So they rolled a 2, and he didn't have a card to play that would have let him add 1 to the result. So immediately, their crew morale is now a fair. And their morale will never go up unless maybe there's a card that says they drink rum and they get their morale built up. So that was actually pretty devastating to the French. So some of their buddies were killed, and they said, yeah, that sucks. Because that will affect some of their gunnery, because there are bonuses and things you get when your crew is handy and they're no longer handy. Alright, that's all the combat for that action. So we completed the activation. We had no reload. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, it is right here. Look at there. Reload, conduct fire combat, and grappling. Nope, done. Then we check melee. We're not grappled. No melee. Bonus move. So at this point, we would decide, do we want to do a bonus move because we've passed the impulses? I don't think either ship at this point needs to do a bonus move. So then we would go to housekeeping. Housekeeping, we're going to check for putting out a fire. No one's on fire. We're going to try and do repair rolls. The only repair roll I have is for the insurgent to repair some of its rigging. Now, because it's got 2 crew in the damage control for rigging, they get 2 dice. On a 5 or 6, they repair 1 point of rigging. However, the dice, this is just increasing my odds of getting a 5 or a 6. I don't get to repair 2 if they both roll a 5 or 6. So they rolled a 3 and a 2. They did not repair any rigging. Now, a couple other things here. This I would have liked to have had a short housekeeping. So we do firefighting, damage control, then we do a morale check, but that's if they have a section of the hull destroyed, which they don't. We don't have anything to check for strike. We're not changing cell status. We're not disengaging. Update smoke. Alright, so here's the rule I got. Before we move and update smoke, I'm going to check to see if there's a change in the wind. Yes. Wow, first time for me. That's nice. Basically, my 2 fate dice came up with negatives. So that means because they're a matching symbol, the wind is going to shift counterclockwise by 1 facing. Wow, early on in the game. You'll see why that's important. Because smoke, what it does is all of the 1s disappear, then all the 2s change to 1. So these ships just got done shooting. Smoke is important because it provides a defensive cover, but now the smoke is going to blow in the direction of the wind marker. So their smoke is blowing that way. Wow, okay, that was cool. Oh, so one thing too, I didn't pick a maneuver. Yeah, I did. Did I pick the maneuver? I shouldn't have picked a maneuver in that 12 impulse. Yeah, when you're in the 12th impulse and you complete a maneuver, you don't pick a maneuver. I forgot that. So this 3 maneuver I picked earlier, some of you probably caught up on that. I'm just going to remember that's what I've chosen. But the reason you don't pick it is because you don't pick a maneuver in turn 12. So that works that way. And that's it. So we updated the smoke, and then we draw a card. So the French player is going to get their 1 card, and let's see what they pull. They get don't give up the ship. Hold the card. Add 2 to each strike roll. Oh. Okay. I guess if we're going to do something, add 2 to each strike roll. Okay, so if I had multiple strikes, I could add 2. So we're going to hold on to that. If we ever have to strike, we can roll a bonus. Okay, that's the end of the turn. Housekeeping's done. Next turn, we assign crew. I don't need to change crew. Yeah, I do. Because the French lost 1 crew, they had 15. I had 15 assigned, right? Because there was 10. No, I didn't. I had 10, 13. Because I didn't have enough people assigned to ship locations, like I said, leftover goes to their crew section for handling like boarding parties and whatnot. So I had 13 spent. That means I've got 1 crew just hanging out, ready to do melee. So crew is assigned for both ships. I don't need to make any changes for the American crew. So their ship is set the way I want it to be. Great. Then we do determine initiative. Okay, so on a new turn segment, The French now get a -1 to their roll for initiative, and they're the white die. So Americans rolled a 4, French rolled a 2. So American sees the initiative. I put their initiative tracker on the board. Okay, initiative done. Then determine movement rates. All right, now this is important because these ships have turned towards each other. We now have to calculate how much movement points they get, and it could be a lot. So we start by comparing the initiative player, which would be the American, and he's got B. The wind is on his B section, and the wind is blowing on the G section of the French, so I come down to the G. Ooh, since the French player is kind of going into the... Ooh, actually, they're in irons now. The way the wind blew them right into irons, so this kind of makes sense. When you're in irons, you don't get any move points. Aish. So they're going to have to do a maneuver to get out. They get a sternway. Back the ship into the rear square and rotate to F or G. Okay, so I'm going to play this block for them. It is a strain. So they're in irons. So the wind blew and put the French ship in irons. So they get no activation. That means they get their one little activation marker on impulse 12. Wow. So that was a crazy thing that happened with the wind. But the American player starts with 8 move points that we'll take a look at. But they get bonus points. The French doesn't get to do bonus points because they got 0 movement, but the American player does. So that's based on the type of ship, the hull that he has. So he rolls a die 6, and we're going to see if they play a card. He rolled a plus. So he played a card imaginarily from the cards he was supposed to have, and he gets to modify +1 to the die roll. So that's actually a 4, and he has an average hull type. It didn't matter between a 3 and a 4, but he was hoping for more. So he gets 2 more bonus movement points. But my crew morale, I get to add +1 to that. So that actually brings the whole die roll and modifiers up to a 5, which gives him +3. So yeah, it's a good thing he quote-unquote played that card. So I have 11 activations. Whoa. And because we're moving at medium sail, we get all of them. If this was at fighting sail, they would only get half of that. So there's 12. I'm just going to leave 1 in here. Now, how do I seed the impulse tracker? Everywhere there's an 11. So the very first impulse is a 12, no other number. So that means all these other ones get a marker. Now, if you had a 5 or a 6, that would mean like every couple of impulses there would be an activate. But see, now that the wind is with me, and the wind is against the French player, that means the American ship has a lot of options for reloading, opportunity to fire, maneuver. It's crazy. So then, after we got the movement rates, we would select our maneuver. That's where the American player would say, oh, I don't currently have a maneuver in play like my French player does, so I'm going to pick the going straight ahead to cross. So I put the 3 down, and that's in the B. Alright. Then I've got that down. Then it says select the first marked impulse. Okay, so nothing here in the 1, but here we go. Here's an activation. My guns aren't loaded, so no firing, so I'm just going to collect my activation marker. I have nothing else that I want to do, no grappling or anything. So we move to the next impulse. I gather up another activation marker, nothing for the French player. The American player gathers their activation token. Now I've got my 3, so I spin that on my maneuver, move 1 forward. Then, since I've completed the maneuver, I have to decide what I want to do. Well, I'm still going to try and move, and if I can get out here quick enough, maybe in here, I could actually try and fire a raking shot. So we're going to keep moving at a diagonal. Now again, I would move that secret to my opponent. Now we move to the next impulse. Again, nothing's reloaded, so I'm just collecting impulse at this point. Boom. This is us gathering momentum, and there's 3 more. I move 1 more. So I am moving. The French player is not moving because they are in irons. Now, on this next impulse, I'm going to grab the activate the ship. We conduct a load. I'm going to keep the chain shot because chain shot worked good. I mean, you know, as long as if I hit the rigging, I killed crew. So you know what I'm going to do? Instead of firing chain shot, I'm going to load up just a singular round shot. Let's see how round shot does. You know, maybe this time if I hit the hole, I can do damage. Rigging, if you hit rigging, you get to do an extra point of rigging damage, but you know, I didn't hit rigging at all. So we're going to say, and again, I would choose that secretly, so the French player doesn't know that we have secretly switched the chain shot to round shot. Now, because I reloaded and I grabbed that activate marker, which I think I'm on impulse 9, yeah, because, well, no, that was on 8, because we had 6, we reloaded 8. I could fire. Now that I've loaded and it is my activation, I can fire again, which we will. So we'll do another round of firing. Now I am still, I'm sure, well over 12 movement points away, but I'm within that 24. So if I just count it out, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, then 3 for diagonal, 19 plus 3 is 22. So we've gotten a little closer, but I still have 6 gunnery points per section of the ship, so that's 12 guns I'm going to fire. Alright, and maybe I have another card I'll spend on a die. Now I don't get the +1 because I'm not firing chain. You could argue, why does chain get a +1? I think it's because it's like two cannonballs with a chain in it, so it's, you know, greater chance of hitting something. So I only get to add 1 for my handy, so I'm hitting on 4s. So there's a hit, there's a hit. I did not roll nearly as well this time. 12 shots went out, only 4 potentially hit. Wow, that's terrible. Even with the plus, even if I got the plus, I still would have had to have rolled a 4, which I guess is applied to this guy here. No, it would have been a 3. Because 4 plus my 1 for my crew morale. Yeah, there was a question on the forum. Why does crew morale affect gunnery and not crew skill? And Mike Nagel said, because a happy crew is a motivated crew, and they're going to do their best. Okay, so, yep, that's it, 4. So I'll put my little marker on 4. But here's the thing. We counted, how far away were we? 22. Half of that is 11. So I'm rolling 11 defense dice. I don't think they're going to get hurt by that. Remember, 5s and 6s block. They get +1 because of the range. So 4s block. So there's a block. The French played a card. So they can move one of their 3s to a 4. No, they would have to be a 4. Well, let's see. They get +1. Yeah. Let's see. +1 for the defense. That's a 5, 6. Yeah, so a 3 is a 4. I can modify 1 3 up, so that hits. But then, there we go. Well, okay, it doesn't matter. We were able to dodge all those cannonballs. Well, that sucks. This time the firing was not nearly as good. So I take my ball shots, if you will, and count up. But because they're just ball shots, they're not anything fancy, 6 impulses later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So next turn, very shortened in the next turn, we'll be able to fire again. And because we fired more than 3 up, we put down 2 smoke markers. Since the French isn't firing, that smoke is applied immediately. And then we go to the next activation. Bloop. Next activation. Bloop. And I complete a maneuver. So the American player spins 3 of those, moves 1 hex. The smoke stays, so we clear away from the smoke. Keep moving that direction. I pick a new maneuver. Now, because I'm near the end of the turn, I have to decide. I have to do a maneuver that takes 2 impulses to do. Otherwise, I'll incur the strain penalty, which I might not want. So if I wanted to continue going diagonally and put the ship overburdening the rigging on the ship, because we're going at a constant strain, I could. Or I could do, since I'm on a B, I could do like a back sail and leave the ship in its current look. Well, no, because then I have to pick another maneuver on when we hit to 11. So I think I'm going to wear momentarily. We're going to rotate from the B to E for a moment. That will allow me to do a full maneuver. So I'm going to put that. So I find my 2 block. 2 block on the B to E. So we're not turning yet. That's my planned turn after 2 impulses, and that would keep the ship from overstraining because I've put a lot of pressure on the ship to move it like that. Okay, so we're done there. Then we go to the 10, which I earn 1 towards that. I can't fire because we're reloading currently. The French are now reloaded, so they put these back on their gunnery locations. Good for you, French. Then we get our activation points. So the French has 2. The American gets his second. Now the French, because they're trying to, oh, that's right. They had the active point from earlier, but because they went into irons, oh, that's right. We just picked up that activation point now. They now have enough to complete this maneuver once they moved into the 12. So they're going to do their 1 maneuver, which is sternway. Back the ship into the rear square and rotate to F or G. So the wind was blowing on them, and they have to rotate to F or G. They're going to go back 1 into the smoke. Oh, okay, cool. Well, smoke. And they're going to rotate... what does it say? And rotate to F or G. They're going to have to rotate to F because that's what it says. Because they were already G. Oh, let's see. Oh, they're going to rotate the G. There you go. So they're going to rotate 1 to put the G into the wind. So now they're now let's see, what are they doing now? Now they're beating. So the wind is coming at them, but they're not directly in. But the smoke, they just went right back into their smoke. So they completed that maneuver. Neither ship picks a new maneuver yet. They just execute their maneuver. The American now has his 2, and yeah, he was going to wear and rotate to the D. So I'd rotate F to D. No, it says or A to D. Well, I'm not changing A to D. Oh, I might have read this wrong. Or rotate B to E. Oh yeah, so I'm going to rotate because the B is that way, so I'm going to go rotate B to E. Well, now the wind, yeah. Well, because the wind changed, that changed how my ship is facing stuff. So B to E. Well, I'm already E. And the wind is on the E. Or I change A to D. I'm going to change the B here. I'm going to change that to E. So the ship is going that direction. Alright, sounds good. And there's his 2 maneuver, and he doesn't pick a maneuver. So now we go to housekeeping. Come here, you. So first you check for fighting fire. There's no fire. Then we check for repair rigging, which the only one with rigging damage is the French, so they roll their 2 dice. They're going to roll this die. Now, we're going to see if they get a 5 or a 6 to repair 1 rigging. Nope, they rolled a 2 and a 3 again. No help from the bonus, so their rigging stays the same. Then we do a morale check. There's no whole sections are missing. Nothing's on strike. Nobody's changing their cell status. Update smoke, so we're going to roll both fate die and see if the wind changes again. Nope, they don't match, so no change in wind. The smoke 1s all disappear. All smoke 2s change, and then they move with the wind. So smoke is drifting that way now. Perfect. And then draw a bridge card. And the Americans have initiative. Now, we had no strike rolls to do, so the French is holding on to that one. But the American player draws, drop the sea anchor. Allow your ship to back sails twice in the same square. Normally, you can only play backing, like a backing or a wear maneuver, once in a row. And there's a little marker you put down. But this would allow me to do back sails twice in a row. Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to hold on to that. I don't know if I need to, but it's there. All right, we're about 46. So that was turn 2. Yep. Oh, we had to put the reload. So the French fired. I think they had fired in Impulse 11. No, they reloaded. I don't think they fired, though. They probably could have fired. They'll fire the next time. I forgot they loaded, and on their 1 activation, they could have fired at the end of that turn. I'll let them hold on to that. I won't backtrack, but we'll just say the French is going to hold on to the firing, but we'll do it next time. Okay, so we start the new turn, assign crew. The crew, nothing's changed in crew, so I'm going to leave the crew assignments as they are. We're going to determine initiative. My initiative marker moves. So the Americans get -1, so they're the purple die. So it becomes a tie. Oh, you know what? I forgot what to do if there's a tie on initiative. I don't know if they just re-roll or if it says the player that had it keeps it. I think that's actually the first time I've run into a tie. So the Americans had -1 on there, but that brought them to a tie. So who gets it? It says initiative. Rolls die modify. Oh, you get to modify it for your crew. I have forgot to do that. We have a crack crew, so we get a +1. Okay, so actually we retain initiative. Oh, in case of a tie, you just re-roll. Well, because I got a crack crew, we get a +1, so we're back up to 6. So Americans retain the initiative. All right, cool. Good for them. Problem solved. Then we do determine movement rates. Now, we should get some good movement points because neither ship is currently in irons. And but they're relative. They're both going the H direction. So that means we're back how we were at the beginning of the game. Relative positioning to the wind and each other, they get 0 movement points. Oh my goodness. So what does that mean? That means they each get 1 activation. Okay, well, there we go. Yeah, perfect. Okay. All right, well, basically, we would move along. The Americans finally reload, which they cannot take advantage of. So they load up with the shot that they wanted. Okay, perfect. Can't do anything with it for a while. Then we skip. And the Americans and the French both get an activate marker. What do they do with the activate marker? Well, when you're active, you can, first thing you do is you get to pick a maneuver. Now, because neither one had a maneuver, they have to decide what they want to do. The American is going to wear because he wants to turn towards his buddy again. So he's on the E, and that's only kind of cost one maneuver. So he could wear right now. Yeah, because you have to pick your impulse and then reveal a maneuver and whatnot. All right. Then the French player, if we use this handy wheel that kind of has sort of failed me a little bit. Actually, we do change this. It's going to be a 3-2-1 situation. The AI is going this way. I'm this direction from them. Ooh, but the wind is blowing this way. So let's see. I know it's missing some numbers, but let's see if the AI book has a 3-2-2 situation. So I'm going to roll a die 6. 3. I know you can't read the chart, but there is a 3-2-2, and I rolled a 3. 1, 2, 3. So it says face the French to the east, which they are, and they're going to go straight ahead. So that is an advance. So they're on an E. You're going to do an advance, and that is only 2 for the French player. So they can't move this turn. They'll have to do it on the next cycle through. But maneuvers are chosen. Alright, well, I got my 1 activate marker. These guys can shoot at each other this turn. So we're going to remember to shoot. So I'm going to activate, because you do your moving first before you fire. That completes my maneuver of aware. And I'm going to rotate a D to an F, which is now completed. And then the non-initiative player would fire first. Conduct fire if applicable. And it is, because we've got our maneuver done. Oh, I have to pick a new maneuver. I'm going to go back to doing the 3 because I want to advance. And now that the wind is on the B, I'm going to come down here. Again, you can't see where I'm placing them, but blocks are placed. I have no maneuver impulses earned. They have their 1, but their maneuver is a 2 maneuver. So they're kind of stuck right there to go across. All right, French are going to fire. They have 10 dice to roll. So that's all of these. And they get 1 fate card potential. I think we were at 22. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 18, 21. Half of that is 10 and a half, round up to 11. Ooh. 12 movement points gives you, oh, well, that's that's like 21 movement points, but they're within the 24. So essentially I can shoot. They still get a bonus on their defense. But what does that mean? Oh, they're firing chain, by the way. They're still firing it at the rigging. So let's put that on the reload. They fired here, and for them, because they're an average crew plus 2, they're going to reload on 11 impulses. They get plus 1 to hit for the chain shot. They're no longer a handy crew, so they don't get a bonus for that. So they're hitting on 4s. They scored a plus. So that means I could change 1 3 to a 4. Thus pretending that they spent a card that they earned earlier, when they started the game. And that means any other 4s, 5s, and 6s are a hit. This isn't too good. That's only 5 hits, potentially. So I move my little tracker to 5 hits to remember. Then, for defense, because we're at 21, I get 11 defense dice. That's why I needed to know the range. I get 11 defense dice, and because it's over 12 movement points away, I get plus 1 on the defense. So I'm saving on 4s. Which, oh, I'm going to roll this to see if maybe, no, I didn't do anything. So 5 is a save, 5 is a save, a 5 is a save, 5 is a save, and 6 is a save. So even though I had 11 dice to roll, luckily I did save 5 hits. Lucky. and we're good. So the ship was far enough away that that was all misses. You know, hey, sometimes you get some good hits, but they're pretty far, relative speaking, to one another. They get their 2 smoke, but because we have simultaneous fire, they don't get to add the smoke bonus to their defense. Now the Americans are still in a broadside, so they're going to fire 12. They got 12 dice. They're going to roll the card die to see if maybe something cool happens. And they're firing the ball shot, so they don't add 1 for chain, but they do add 1 for being handy because they're motivated. So we're hitting on 4s. Whoa! 1 die just went crazy. Great. Where'd that crazy die just blew off the table? Here it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. All right. Well. All right. So 4's hit. There's a hit. They didn't spend a card, so there's a miss. Hit. 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 Only 5 hits, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So again, out of 12 shots, only 5 hits. Not that spectacular. Because the distance, they're rolling 11 defense dice, and they get +1 because of the range. So they're saving on 4s. This might be ineffectual. Oh, but do they get a... They get a plus, they get to modify another die. So they're going to make that 3 into a 4. That's a save. That's a save. That's a save. That's a save. Oh yeah, they clearly the ship was just way too far for any accurate gunfire. Well, you know, you never know until you shoot. But now I got to put my reload markers out. And we reload in 6 impulses. Since that was impulse 12, we're going to be here. So we get to shoot, depending on the shot type and whatnot, almost twice as much as the French. French might switch to, when they reload, they might drop the chain shot as well and go to round shot. Okay, so that was the impulse for both. Put my smoke out. Now they are both in smoke. If for some reason they didn't move out of those hexes, this would be huge penalties for gunnery, because you get to add dice based on how the cumulative smoke in the target and you, because it's hard to see through your own smoke and it's hard to see them in smoke. But we'll probably be way out of that by the time we reload. Okay, then we do the housekeeping. There's no fire. They're going to check for rigging. They still have 2 dudes attached to rigging. Fate die doesn't do any good, and they score 2 1s. They're still down 2 rigging points. This doesn't really affect anything until, well, you can't see it, but once they get down to 6 rigging points, then they can no longer move at medium. They'll be at fighting sails. So they're still good, but they would like to get all their rigging back. And they don't get to add anything for morale anyway, so we're fine. Okay, no problem. Let's see. Then, yeah, I don't have any rigging damage on me to check. So let's just take a peek again. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. Oh, housekeeping. Fire, damage, morale. No strikes, no changing his sail status. So the smoke, we're going to roll 2 dice to see if the wind changes. Nope. So that stays. So the 1s go away. Yeah, the 2s become 1. Yeah, you know. Yeah, it won't be there much longer anyway. Yeah, nobody had a bonus move to worry about. Smoke. Bridge card for the Americans. See, now we're starting to get some cards. Easy pickings. Reduce your opponent's strike checks by 1. Okay, so if we ever get to a strike, the French had, I'm going to add to my strike check. This guy would be, I'll reduce it, so I would cancel that out. So we're going to hold on to that. Okay. That then would complete out housekeeping. We're the next turn. Great. Assign crew. So we'll do one more turn. This will be the last turn, promise, because I'll put us over an hour. But by then, this should give you a pretty good idea how the game plays. So we're going to assign crew. Crew is fine. They're where they need to be. Determine initiative. So the Americans had the initiative twice in a row. They now subtract 2 from their die roll. And the French, oh, I add 1 because I'm handy. So that's a 3, but if I subtract 2, that makes it a 1. This is a tie, so we re-roll. So now the French for sure have the initiative. Good on the French. So they get, Americans take that back. French put their initiative on the board. All right, initiative done. Determine movement rates. Okay, we need that. I have a movement rate table. So it says the initiative player, which is the French, they are G to the wind. And then we, if I move the smoke for a minute, are E. So I go G to E. Oh. The French don't move, but I get 2. Okay, so based on their relative positionings to each other and the wind, the French get no movement points, but I get 2. Well, the Americans get 2. And then I get to roll for bonus. And I add 1 for crew. So I roll a 4. Ooh, let's say they played a card. You know what I should do is if I roll that plus, maybe I should actually spend a card. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with so many cards I don't use and free rolls. That's how I'm going to modify this for the future. So this only works if I have a card to discard. So do I hold on to the card or do I go ahead and discard it for the bonus? Yeah, I like that. I'm going to get rid of this drop anchor. I don't see myself backing 2 times in a row. So now I can make that die roll a 6, plus 1 for crew, plus 1 for the card I discarded. That's actually a brilliant idea. Good job, because that will help me decide when I would play or when the AI would play a card in their hand. Okay, cool. So I look at my chart. It's a 6 average, 3 more. So I get 5 activations. The French person only gets 1 on impulse 12. But since I have a total of 5, 3, 4, 5, I look for all boxes with a 5. There's a 5. There's a 5. There's a 5. There's a 5. Oh, and then a 5 over here on the 12. So they'll both do something then. Okay, since the ships have moved a little bit, let's move in a little bit more. Yeah, and then you can watch the action a little bit on the impulse tracker. Yeah. All right. I almost need a camera for the, if I had 2 cameras, I would have one pointing at the blocks where we do maneuvers. Because actually, now that I think about it, this has a lot for me to manage. There's not a whole lot for you to look at except listen to me tell you the story of what's happening. All right. Well, we have now got our determined rates. We start the activation cycle. So we're going to select maneuvers. We both have maneuvers. When did I pick that maneuver? You know what? Neither person, did I do it again? I think I completed a maneuver on impulse 12 and just out of habit picked my maneuver. But the French, because they can't complete that maneuver last turn, they should actually have made, so I shouldn't have picked this maneuver during impulse 12, because you don't pick a maneuver on impulse 12. So I'd be picking that maneuver now. I gotta track that better in my head. But the French player, I totally forgot about that because they had this 2 maneuver and only 1 activation point. They technically are in an illegal move, if you will, because of the wind and whatnot. So they actually have to make a stress test, a straining test. So they're going to make a, this is risky, it's going to be a 2 because they don't have a morale bonus. So they're going to add 2 to the roll. But if they fail, they're going to take 2 rigging damage. But if they make it, they don't take rigging damage, but they get a free move forward. So we're going to do it. I need to roll a 4. Can you see? I'm going to move it over a little bit. Got to roll a 4. I hate these folded maps. I'm getting these white crease lines already. Oh, they don't make it. So they didn't roll the bonus because I would have totally spent that card to get it. This one card they have. But they didn't. They came close. So that means they take 2 rigging damage. Not ideal. And they don't get to move forward. So that sucks. The normal rules are that you move forward and then you make the roll. But me, I think it makes sense that if you successfully prevent your ship from straining, you get that bonus. So there's like actual incentive to do something with the ship. Yeah, so that's how I play it. Oh, and the other thing we forgot to do in housekeeping was move the smoke. We reduced them all to 1, but then we forgot to move them. Yeah, I didn't rotate. They didn't have to. I didn't have to change the wind, but I forgot to move the smoke one. So much. I want to get through another turn. I'm skipping things by accident. All right. So now we start the impulses. We have maneuvers. We start the impulses for the turn. Come to the first impulse for the Americans. That's 1. They have a 3 maneuver they've selected, so I'm going to need 2 more. Go to the next maneuver. They activate, but I can't reload or fire or anything. So then on this impulse that I am on, I am now reloaded. So we can't shoot. I mean, if that had an activation and loaded, then we could shoot. Now I'm on impulse 7. So that first things first. I complete my maneuver. Boop. And which is to move, advance across here. Done. Oh, I think I bumped my ship here. And now that they're reloaded, they can fire. Okay. Do we want to do that? Oh, I got to pick a new maneuver. Now, because I've only got 2 impulses left, if I pick this 3 again, then I would have to make a strain test too to see if I take rigging damage or get to move forward and keep working on this. Or I could pick another wear maneuver and just turn. But to be honest, I think I'm going to go ahead and risk it and choose a 3 to go against the corner. Because I'm trying to race to the middle. Because I'd eventually, you know what? I think I'm going to turn because I want to come down at some point and try to cross the T. So just so I don't have to take damage potentially, I'm going to do a wear maneuver. So that would allow me to move either A to D or rotate 1 point to C. I don't want to, well, rotate 1 point to C would be the same as A to D. Since the wind is blowing there, do I turn or B to E? Or spin 2 and rotate 1 point to C? Kind of weird, but it's like the same maneuver, but it costs 2 wear points. Yeah, this is weird. I'm going to spin 2. I'm going to pick an American 2 here, just so it uses up my points into the end. Kind of a weird way to... Yeah, I could show you the maneuver chart and show you this, but it seems weird because the wear, it says for one impulse, rotate 1 point to C. So if I'm rotating to C, C is in the opposite direction. So, I mean, I would be rotating 1 point to C or rotating 1 point to C for 1 movement point. Or spin 2 and rotate A to D, which is like the exact same thing, but for 2 impulses. So this will just let me burn off 2 impulse for the turn and not worry about it. So here's my two points. That's just a really weird thing. There was a few things I've encountered with this that didn't quite make sense to me. That's one of them. Okay, so maneuver selected for the Americans. We're going to fire because we just reloaded and we grab... Nope, we just reloaded. Now we have to come here. There's 1 towards the 2. And now we'll fire. I'd like to get closer, but with the relative to the wind, we're just not drawing close enough, fast enough. So again, I'm within 24 movement points. I'm firing 12 gunnery points. And yeah, you know what? If I get a bonus, I will spend that card. So we're going to roll all my dice. Let's see what hits. So +1 for the morale. So I'm hitting on 4s. And we'll roll this bad boy. And I didn't get to spin the card. Alright, so 4 is a hit, 5 is a hit, 4 is a hit, 4 is a hit, 4, that's a 6, 4 is a hit, 4 is a hit. The rest of those are misses. That's respectable. 2, 4, 6, 7. 7 hits. Alright. Again, we count the distance, because the closer you get, the fewer defense dice. But I think we're still like at 22 points. 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20. I think every time I play, I'm counting closer for some reason. 2, 4, 6. I thought it was 21 before, now it's 20. So clearly I've miscounted it previously. Math is hard. 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 plus 3 is 11, 14, 17, 20. They get 10 defense dice. Because it is over 12 movement points away, they get to add 1. So they're saving on 4s. Well, we scored a lot of hits. They're getting fewer defense dice. We might get another hit. So, let me see if they want to spin a card. They have the option to spin a card. So since they're hitting on 4, I'm going to turn this 1, 3. Well, let me see how many successes we have first, because they might decide to hold on to that card. If I can negate, nope. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll spin this card, turn that to a 4, and then, because we're adding 1 because of the range. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means only 1 hit goes through. So there is a hit, but 1 hit usually doesn't do much. So I roll 3 dice. Ooh, I forgot to make a morale check. No, I did. Yeah, I did. I forgot to make the morale check last time. No, I didn't. I remembered. Never mind. Okay, so here we go. I roll 6, 10, 12. Don't modify that. So I'm a 12 with 1 hit. That might not do much. So I look at 12, go all the way across. 1 hit does 1 rigging. Okay, great. That's what we want. So there's a rigging hit. And now, when you take damage, you make a crew morale check. There is a morale effects table, which I think the morale effects table is what I forgot to look at last time. Last time I just simply rolled. And I think too, when I had all them hits, I forgot to check for fire, possibility of fire. Again, just silly things to forget when you're trying to run through this so you can get as much filmed as possible. But let's do the morale effects table. So I'm going to roll a die. Now you want to roll high. The French have no more cards to play, so I won't roll the die. So I'm going to roll, and they don't get to modify it by handy because they're not handy anymore. So this is just a straight roll. If I roll a 1 or a 2, there might be a problem. Okay, I rolled a 1. So that means they're going to roll 1 die for morale. So if this comes up a 1 or a 2. So this chart basically just tells you how many dice you're going to roll to see if your morale drops. So your morale doesn't drop per failure, if you will. It just means the more dice you roll, the greater likelihood of dropping 1 morale point will happen. So I'm going to roll 1 die. If it's a 1 or 2, their morale drops again. They rolled a 5, so losing a little bit of rigging didn't bother them. Okay, but I have to put my reloads out, and they fired on 9. See, that's something I forget to do sometimes. I should put the reloads down first so I don't forget what impulse we were. They reload in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, excellent. So there they are, ready to reload. And we fired, they did defense. That combat is done. Then we move ahead to the next impulse. The French reload. Oh, why did I put the smoke marker there? I honestly thought, oh, they needed to put an activate marker because they only got one activation this round. That was silly. Okay, so they're going to fire. Let me move the reload now. Now remember, they take, oh, they're going to load round shot too. Not double shot. Now, the American player doesn't know what they're loading, so we had to do port. We want port round shots. And since I have two sections, I got to find both of the port round shots. All right, so they load up, and then they're going to fire because they made it. Oh, because they're firing, I'm going to take the shots off. And remember, they are average now, so it's going to be 9. They're not firing chain, and they're not their morale, but their quality is average. Whew. So they're firing. They will. We had to do maneuvers first. So I get 1 towards my maneuver. They get... So maneuvers always happen first because that could affect distance, traveling, things like that. Like it might here because the French are going to complete their maneuver. So their maneuver was to move across a strait. Alright, they moved. They're done with their maneuver. They don't pick a maneuver on impulse 12. I'm remembering this time. And because it didn't carry into the next turn, they don't have to make a strain check. I remember that. Alright, trying to remember those things. Now, the Americans also complete their maneuver. They're doing the 2, which was to where? Rotate 1 point from A to D or from B to E. So I'm rotating from B to E in that location. So now they're running parallel again. I only did that because I didn't want to take the strain. So I took some stress and strain off the rigging. But that means we're running parallel to each other again. We're not gonna. It's gonna take a while for us to get really close, but it's the way it is. So we said they're gonna fire. So now that the maneuvering's done, the French can now fire. There's no smoke lingering on anybody. So they have 10 guns they get to fire. Well, 10 gunnery points. I have no cards to play, so they don't get to check for a bonus. So thinking out loud, I guess what I'll do, since I like the idea of rolling and then they can optionally spend the point if they earn the plus sign or subtraction, is go ahead and start them both with 3 cards like you're supposed to. Anyway, just a thought for the future. Alright, they don't get a bonus for morale, so they get a... What do they get a bonus for? They're not firing chain, so it's a straight roll. 5s and 6s. I'll keep that 6 to be nice. And there's a 5, a 6. Oh, well, I'm glad I was nice and kept that because that was only 4 hits. Not too good, actually. So I put my little tracker onto the 4. But I could roll bad on the defense. I think they moved 1, so we might be closer. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then you add 3, so 13, 16, 19. 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. Round up is 10. So I rolled 10 defense dice. Here's 10 defense dice. Reduce your point. You know what? I'm gonna roll this and see if we can. No, I'll just keep it up. You would declare first, so I'm gonna hold on to that card because I think I can stop 4 hits. Because there's a stop. Because they get +1 for range, so that means the 4s are good too. Oh, well, I guess I should have spent. Well, too late now. I only blocked 3. Great. So that means the French player was able to get 1 shot in. That's awesome. Okay, well, good for the French player. But they're going to roll 2, and they're going to roll this. Here we go. Ah, you know what? I messed up the morale table too because I think I rolled a die. You don't. So again, I keep remembering last minute things because I don't have a buddy here telling me, Eddie, you did it wrong. Let me roll these 3 dice and explain what I did wrong and hopefully get it right this time because I'm thinking about it. So let me get this right. This die right here, that's why there's an odd colored die in this trio. This is the one that you use to determine the morale check. So that 6 is good. That's the best roll you can get. But that means I got a grand total of 10. So I go 10, run it across to 1 hit, and it says 1 hole, 2 crew. Well, good, because if it was chain, it wouldn't have done a whole hit. Since we're hitting the hole, you got to split between the left and right side. This is my starboard side. There's only 1, so I'm just going to die roll it. On an odd, it's the front. Even, it's the back. Odd, it's the front. So I take 1. Oh, that's bad. That takes 1 hole. So I go from having 6 cannons available to 5 in that section, which means I've got crew free to do other stuff. Now, I do not have anyone assigned to repairs, so in the next turn, I would assign a couple people to try and fix the hole. All right, well, that's good. And then it said also, what did I say? And 2 crew. That's bad. So I lost 2 crew. So I'm going to have to make a morale check anyway, but losing 2 crew is terrible. So the French scored a really lucky hit. So now, one of the things we're going to do is check for fire, because I forgot to check for fire last time, I think. No, I didn't. I didn't forget to check, because when you have 1 hit, there's no check for fire. I did forget that one time I had like a 7 or something like that, 7 hits. That I forgot to check for fire, but yeah, 1 hit, there's no chance of fire. But I do have to make the morale table. So 1 hit was achieved, and my die roll was a 6. So 6 cross-reference to the 1, 0. So there's no morale check. So even though some of their buddies died, they're like, meh, whole hit, lost a cannon, that guy owed me money. No big deal. We're cool. We got this. That would be the end of Impulse 12. Okay, so that puts us at about an hour and a half. Yeah, I like it. So, we'll pause there. We'll stop. We'll stop there. So, if you like this, you want to see more, I'll come make another one later. Like I said, I got some other video commitments that I have promised to do, so I have to visit this again. As I've played, I tweaked a little bit how I will do the solo in the future, but for the better. I do like the earning the bonus move, because if you fail your move, if you fail that check, not only do you take damage to the rigging, but you don't get the free move. Because that free move, it's like, yeah, why not? Why don't I always go for it? Even if I lose a little rigging, I can repair the rigging, but I get an extra move. That to me doesn't jive. You got to earn that bonus move. So that's not a solo play thing. That's a house rule thing for Eddie. So I like that change. I like rolling the wind change. Wow, because that was dramatic. Just as the French were starting to close in on their opponent, the wind changed. Like, how unlucky for them was that? Unplanned. But I like that little bit of randomness. And I like the idea that I did of saying, you know, hey, I'm going to roll this die, and if it comes up a plus sign, they actually have to spend a card in hand if they want to get that plus. So it kind of gives you an option, but doesn't make this overly powerful. But again, when you're playing an AI, that's kind of cool, because sometimes it's like, do I play a card, not play a card? Well, this gives you the chance, instead of just accumulating all these cards you might not play, you might say, you know what, let me go ahead and modify that important die roll. So that's a good change. I'm excited. I would rather just keep playing this, so we'll have to come back to this game. The one thing I'm going to go back and check is this document. This is on the Board Game Geek. I'll put a link, maybe not in this video, I was putting it in the other video that I did prior to this, but it was the 1.2 document, and I didn't see any other document there for this system. But as you can see, it was missing some pretty vital statistics. Like this has a 311, but no 311, and no 111, and there's a 211, but it feels like it's missing stuff. I'm not sure how that missed, or maybe this wasn't designed for this game. So it's a possibility that for the game that this was designed for, this is all legal. Like all of this is covered. But for what I do, it's missing a few things, and I just kind of have to go with the next best closest option. But otherwise it works great. I think this is really cool, lining up where people are, and then based on how all of this computerizes out, gives you a pretty good idea of what you want the AI ship to do. I like that a lot. So I'm having fun with this game. So again, this is a ship management game, not a simulation, but for a single player solitaire experience, it's a blast. It really is a blast. I'm wondering if Mike Nagel will come out with a solo robot himself. If not, I'm fine. I got all the tools I need to play solo, and I'll do that. So if you like the video, let me know. I'll come back and play some more solo at some point. But I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you later. All right, thanks for tuning in.